So welcome to our, I think this is the fourth call for the Open Design Guide Reading Club, and we're on chapter 3. That's because we started with an intro page and not an actual chapter. I will share our document again with call notes. So this is the Google Doc that has all the notes from all the previous calls, and you'll have edit access to it. And you can just take notes during the call. Like everyone, you're welcome to chip in. I do see it part of my role to just take notes. So if you just want to focus on the conversation, okay, sounds good. Thanks, Tony. If you just want to focus on the conversation, I'll take notes. And just real quick, recording. I always have a few things here in the agenda. Personal intros. We didn't want to do them last time. Do you want to do personal intros this time?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
No.
And then I just wanted to point out a couple things. So the feedback on the introduction page that we talked about 2 weeks ago. So this feedback is merged in. Hold on, I need to switch my background here. So the feedback on this page here in the by background, that's merged in, right? Then there is a pull request for changes that we discussed last week. So this was the chapter 1 open source page. I tried to take the notes from the conversation, implement changes, and there's a pull request. If you'd like to help review it, you're more than welcome to. So that's right there. That's all linked in the notes. And then just one extra thing that I wanted to share is I created I very quickly put together this table of contents here. You can see it in my background here. And that's because as I was reading through the page in preparation for today, I was like, okay, it feels like we're repeating ourselves a little bit. And then there was some stuff where I thought, well, don't we cover that elsewhere? And I really wanted to have a table of contents. So I just put one together real quick. So this is also just pull request with a very quick table of contents here. I find it helpful, but it'd also be great to get your input on. So that's just kind of website updates. And then using that one, we are talking about understanding the designer's role. So as a reader of this material, I've now landed on the homepage. I've decided this is interesting. I got a quick introduction of what this whole guide is about. Then I read the chapter about open source and the key principles, the benefits, the impact. So I'm kind of primed now about open source and, kind of from a little bit of a design perspective. And now we're going to talk specifically about the role of the designer in open source. So it's a pretty crucial chapter. And as usual with our format, we'll just take turns reading a little bit of the page, and then whoever reads it talks a little bit about how they responded to it, and then we just have a quick conversation, and then we move on. And I'll try to time things a little bit to make sure that we get all the way through the whole page within the next 50 minutes or so, maybe even faster, because it seems like some people have to go a little bit earlier. So does anyone any questions, any thoughts, or should we just kick off?
Let's go.
Okay, you're ready to go, Mo. Does anyone want to start reading this one?
I'm happy to read it if you want to just pull up the link. Where's the link to read it?
Dang it.
Understanding the designer's role, right? Here we go. Mm-hmm. I'm just putting it up in front of me.
That's such a big topic.
Okay, so I'll skip the on this page. Or no, let me read that as well. Okay. On this page, number 1, the evolving role of design. Number 2, types of design contributions. Number 3, the importance of design. Number 4, challenges designers may face. Number 5, success stories. Number 6, best practices. Number 7, conclusion. The evolving role of design. Okay, it's just one small minor thing that I am noticing is that there are, let me share my screen here, And that might be something maybe for the entire document itself. There's uppercase here, and then there's lowercase here in the main headings, and then here there's uppercase, 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 uppercase. It's just a small thing I just noticed.
Title case rather than
Yeah.
sentence case, yeah.
The evolving role of design. In the early days of open source, the focus was primarily on functionality. Developers were more concerned with creating powerful software that could perform complex tasks, often at the expense of user friendliness. The result was software that, while impressive in its capabilities, could be challenging for the average user to navigate and use effectively. However, the landscape has shifted dramatically in recent years. Today, design plays a crucial role in the success and adoption of open source projects. The open source community has recognized that even the most powerful software is of limited use if people find it difficult or frustrating to use. As a result, there's been a growing emphasis on creating intuitive, visually appealing interfaces and smooth user experiences. The shift has opened up exciting opportunities for designers to make significant contributions to open source projects. Your skills as a designer are now more valuable than ever in the open source world, and you have the power to shape how millions of people interact with technology. Okay. Starting out with the early days, moving into how things were, moving into now the current landscape, and then pulling you in as a designer to showing your value. Right. I like the way that it's structured. I like that it goes into the history of things, and then it moves into the now, and then it moves almost into the future. But there's just something about the readability. It just feels, I know that we know that this was produced by AI. It feels a bit, a little bit too AI. I would just kind of massage the content a bit to remove some words to make it a bit more, yeah. And yeah, that's my only feedback. But other than that, the structure and everything is very good. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so I think we've noticed that with the previous pages too, that the AI text gets a bit repetitive sometimes. And I'd also like to just put the word open source everywhere. So there's the term open source appears 41 times on this page, and we can cut at least half of it. That's when I was editing the previous pages too, I was like, okay, there's a lot of repetition there, and the text can definitely be tightened up a bit without losing any meaning. That seems like a pattern that we're getting into.
Yeah, that's it pretty much. But other than that, it reads very well. Yeah, the structure itself is very good. I don't know if anyone else would like to chime in.
So something that we talked about on a previous page too, is that the open source philosophy has gone out of tech and into education, design, government, science, all these things. So I think that's also something that speaks to that makes the role of design more relevant, right? Because you can use a designer in science, in education, you can use them everywhere, right? So it's less. I know in this guide we're kind of focused on software and interfaces generally, but I feel like that still could kind of come in some way. That the open source is very broad, not just pixels on a screen. I can read the next part if unless someone else wants to. Any volunteers or any thoughts in the first part? Hitomi, you want to go for it?
Yeah, I want to try it. Okay. So, types of design contributions. As a designer, you might be wondering exactly how you can contribute to open source projects. The good news is that there are many ways to get involved, each utilizing different aspects of your design expertise. User interface (UI) design is perhaps the most visible form of contribution. This involves creating visually appealing and intuitive interfaces for application. Your work here can transform a powerful but intimidating piece of software into something that users find inviting and easy to use. Closely related to UI design is user experience UX design, while UI focuses on the look of the interface. UX is concerned with the overall feel of using the software. As a UX designer, you work on involving the user journey, making sure that every interaction with the software is smooth and intuitive. If you have a knack for creating eye-catching visuals, you might focus on graphic design. This could involve developing logos that capture the essence of a project, designing icons that clearly communicate their function, or creating other visual assets that enhance the software's appeal. For those who enjoy organizing information architecture offers a vital role. This involves structuring the content within the application in a way that makes sense to users, helping them find what they need quickly and easily. Interaction design is another crucial area. Here, you focus on designing how users interact with the software's features, ensuring that every button press, swipe, or click feels natural and satisfying. In larger projects, you might contribute to design systems. This involves creating and maintaining consistent design languages that can be applied across all aspects of a project, ensuring a cohesive look and feel. Accessibility design is an increasingly important field. Your role here would be to ensure that the software is usable by people with various abilities, making technology more inclusive for everyone. Even if you prefer working with words over visuals, there's a place for you in open source design. Documentation design involves improving the presentation and usability of project documentation, helping users and new contributors understanding and use the software more effectively. Sorry, it's too slow for me to read these sentences, but it's very helpful for me, like for me who are it's like me interested in designs, but I'm not sure what kind of designs involve this kind of open source project. So it's very helpful for me. Thank you.
That's great. Did all the different categories make sense for you, or the different types of design? Mm-hmm. How about the others? Or the others in the call? Any thoughts from your side?
It's like graphic design information. I'm just thinking. Okay, Nick, go ahead, please.
Thanks for reading that, Hitomi. I think it kind of makes sense. I guess one thing I would maybe recommend, I don't know, for the future maybe, is to link to the main design branches is to hyperlink more information that leads the user to sort of see examples of those types of designs within the open source space. But it kind of makes, I guess we're focusing just on revising the corpus of text, aren't we?
Yeah, so this text was actually AI generated, and we're kind of doing the first human pass on this whole thing. So there's there's a lot of human stuff missing in this whole thing. So yeah, one thing that that's why there are no images too, right? Because we haven't come up with anything yet. And some of the COPS text, we've seen that in the previous pages too. It doesn't really know how to create good examples. It keeps things more abstract. And when we read it, we really want something practical, saying like, oh, this designer over here, they did this great study and then they changed it from here to there and then more people used it. Like just very specific things. I feel like, and I think that's something that we actually have to use. We have to do research online and try to find good examples, find some quotes, find places to link to. I also think that this section, like you said, it might be helpful to have some either visuals on this page to visualize what this type of design is, or link out to places. Yeah. So that's feedback we need. We should gather here too. Like, what should this be? Not just this basic AI.
Makes sense.
Okay, I've totally neglected my role in taking notes here, but I'm going to take a note here real quick on things. I had a question for Mo here. I don't see anything about research in here. I assume you would like that to be added?
Correct. I think that it gives a very nice high-level overview of all of the other different areas, but it definitely misses the research area. So just one paragraph about it. I'm happy to create that in as well.
Mhm.
AI missed that.
Something else here, I think a lot of people can also take kind of like design lead, design project management roles if they want to, more organizational roles to really shape the process, which is not listed here, but typically open source projects, many don't have that. And then a designer comes in to help establish the process, which to some people, they don't want to do that because it's intimidating. They don't just want to do design or so, but for other people, it's like a way to express themselves, right? They can shape the process based on how they see fit, what they see is appropriate. And it's like something they may not be able to do at work or so, but they can do it here. So I think, design process setup or whatever you might call that. I found the point about user experience design. I didn't find that super precise. I think maybe I'm thinking a little bit more in the area of service design, where you're like thinking about all the different touch points, how a user comes from like first time use to regular use to power use and all these things. But and then what other notes did I have? Yeah, create visuals. That was it. Those were my notes here. But generally, I feel like this is really helpful, this overview. I had the same reaction as he told me. Any other thoughts on this one? I mean, in practice, a lot of times there's like one designer who does just a lot of different things, and you don't really say like, okay, now I'm doing interaction design, now I'm doing this, right? But if you, in your process, if you separate it, and if sometimes you say, okay, now we're just going to focus on this area, rather than just see it all as one big bucket, right? Then it makes everything much easier if you can be organized about it. Anyone wants to read while I just start catch up with notes in the background?
I can try to give it a shot.
Thank you.
For the next chapter. So the importance of design. The impact of good design on open source projects cannot be overstated. well-designed software is more likely to be adopted and used regularly. When users find software intuitive and enjoyable to use, they're more likely to stick with it and recommend it to others. This increased adoption can lead to a snowball effect, attracting more users and potentially more contributors to the project. Speaking of contributors, attractive and user-friendly projects tend to draw more people who want to get involved. This growth in the community can lead to faster development, more diverse perspectives, and ultimately better software. Good design also helps open source alternatives compete more effectively with proprietary software. In many cases, open source software may have similar or even superior functionality compared to proprietary alternatives. However, if the open source option is difficult to use, many people will stick with a more polished proprietary product. By improving the design of open source software, you can help level the playing field and give users a genuine choice. Design improvements can also make complex functionality more accessible to users. Many open source projects are incredibly powerful, but can be overwhelming for new users. Your design skills can help bridge this gap, making advanced features more discoverable and easier to use. Lastly, consistent and thoughtful design helps create a strong, recognizable brand for the project. This brand identity can help the project stand out in a crowded field and build user trust and loyalty over time.
Are we all convinced about design now?
Not really.
How is this chapter?
I think it's quite a big chunk, but maybe not saying a lot. I feel it does make some good points about improving open source software and making it more friendly as opposed to proprietary, where you have designers or a lot more resources that are thrown at it. Yeah.
What
Examples
yeah.
would for this, I think, would make it more digestible, like comparing, for example, 3D design software like Maya versus some of the open source versions. Yeah. You were asking?
Well, I was just curious, what would drive those? How could those points be made stronger, I guess? Like you said, it doesn't say very much.
I think it says it in way more words than it could, but maybe that's also my way. Like if you asked me to read a book, I could probably compress it in a few sentences. It's just my style, I guess.
Sorry, Nick, please continue.
No, go on.
I feel almost like when I look at the let me just share my screen here. I feel like there's even some subheadings over here. So there's complex functionality. It makes it more accessible. So there's this one over here. It helps them to compete. So that's another, like almost a heading. So you could say compete more effectively, complex functionality. Speaking of contributors, attractive user tend to draw people who want to get involved, draw in contributions. So it can almost be draw in contributions, compete effectively, reduce complex functionality. And then there has a fourth point over here, recognizable brand for the project. I feel almost brand also almost fits in with competition. Those two could almost go together into one sentence, although it could remain on its own. So I feel like these could even be just 4 points with main headings and then the explanation afterwards, to keep it a bit more like this is what it is, I don't know. I'm just more of a fan of bullet points and main headings, but that's just me.
Yeah, it depends on what your at what point in the what your reading mental state is, right? At first you kind of you scan, and then if something interests you, you dig a little bit deeper. This wall of text does not allow for scanning in a lot of a little bit on the process. So when I AI generated all these pages, like it was just bullet lists. Everything was a bullet list, and it was just like most annoying pages. Then I said like, okay, use a little bit more words, and then it was like all words, and then I tried to find a little bit something in the middle. And if you scroll up a little bit for like some sections, I went ahead and I bolded the types of design contributions. I bolded the keywords in there, right? That's one way to make it scannable. And on other pages, you'll see I used more headers, where it's like header, 4 lines of text, header, 5, or subheader, like 5 lines of text. So both of these approach, and sometimes a bullet list is the right thing, right? But that allows for scannability, and we don't have that in this one here. But it really seems like it needs that. But see, the other thing is like, I think we get that sense generally that the text hints at these good points, but it doesn't really have the material to just make them super strongly, right? It doesn't have examples, it doesn't have visuals to go along, and we know, and as designers, we know like how more impactful things can be when you lose like the whole vocabulary. I wanted to pull up a page here from the Bitcoin Design Guide, the Bitcoin Tech Primer. Like this is an example where we take very complex technical information, we break it down into bits, then we always have a header, we have a little bit of text, and then we have a visual or a diagram or an illustration to have a visual representation of the same copy that you see there too. And maybe this is more of a direction that we'll go into, where we have these individual points and each one is made with a title if you don't care for it. And the title and the image already give you a good idea. And then if you really want to dive in, the text will give you more meat, maybe more rationale behind things, or some links and other stuff.
Maybe that's the next layer of refining this content, and once we have this initial copy review done, then it will be very clear which images to add in. And I feel then it will be really in a good place. It is already in a good place. I mean, what AI has been able to do so far is amazing. Like that's a whole, So yeah.
I guess that's why we're reading it together, right? So we get a sense for where this really should go, what's lacking, and what we need.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So, but generally, outside of that criticism, do you feel like these are good points here for design, or is it too wishy-washy and you're not really convinced?
I'm feeling that the voice of user, like the UX research, like we're creating software for real people, and I'm missing that a little bit in the text. It talks a lot about being user friendly and all of this thing and making it accessible. I'm missing the bit about that we build software for real people, not ourselves.
Okay. The human side of this. Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts on this one? We're about halfway through, a half hour in, so I think we're in a good place. I can read the next one.
Go for it.
Okay. Heading out, Hitomi? Yeah, see you next one. Thanks for reading. Okay. All right. Challenges designers may face. While designing for open source project is rewarding, it does come with its unique set of challenges. Understanding these challenges can help you navigate them more effectively. A common challenge is working within technical constraints. open source projects often have complex code bases and may use unconventional technologies. As a designer, you'll need to work closely with developers to understand what's technically feasible and find creative solutions within these constraints. Open source software often serves a global and diverse user base with varying needs. This diversity can make it challenging to create designs that work well for everyone. You'll need to think carefully about cultural differences, language barriers, and varying levels of technical expertise among users. Collaborating with a geographically dispersed team can also be tricky. You might be working with people across different time zones, cultures, and communication styles. This requires excellent communication skills and the ability to articulate your design decisions clearly. In some cases, you might face resistance to change, especially in well-established projects. Long-time users may be accustomed to the current design and resist significant changes, even if those changes would benefit new users. Balancing the needs of existing and potential users can be a delicate task. Many open source projects operate with limited budgets and resources. This might mean working with basic tools or having limited access to user research. You'll often need to be creative and resourceful to overcome these limitations. And lastly, as a designer in an open source project, you'll need to balance the needs of various stakeholders. This includes end users, developers, project maintainers, and the broader community. Each group may have different priorities, and finding solutions that satisfy everyone can be challenging. Despite these challenges, many designers find working on open source projects to be incredibly fulfilling. The ability to impact software used by millions of people, the opportunity to work with talented individuals from around the world, and the chance to be part of a community driven by passion rather than profit make open source design a unique and rewarding field. I had a bit of a hard time with this one, and I'll just skip just a little bit. I feel like this one should be merged with best practices. So I feel like this is just like, I mean, some of this is not really unique to open source, right? Anywhere you work, there are technical constraints. Existing products have resistance to change. So I'm not sure if some of these need to be repeated here. I feel like it could be nice to approach this more from, what's different in open source, both from the challenges and from then the best practices that you then use to tackle those challenges. Yeah, that was kind of my point, my primary point there. So I would kind of restructure and rephrase some of this stuff. Also didn't like stuff about limited budgets. That might mean working with basic tools. I don't really think that's necessarily the case. Yeah, I don't know. So that was I would rewrite a good amount of this one, combine it with best practices, and just kind of rephrase it differently, because the challenges, they always arise from something, and then it's not like they're like you don't have tools to deal with them stuff, right? You just work a little bit differently, and if you're smart about it, then it can be very usually pretty enjoyable. So yeah, I don't know. I wasn't happy to just like see a long list of challenges here. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm fully agreeing that these challenges are not related to working in open source. They seem more general. And I think we can definitely come up with a better list of challenges that are specific to open source. I mean, just thinking off the top is managing contributions coming in, different people working, people contributing, then disappearing, just the normal kind of things. For example, having UX designs from 3 different designers for one specific aspect of the UI, just those kinds of things. And also managing expectations as well of contributors. That timelines don't work slightly differently in open source, but things still do move forward.
Yeah, some of these are hinted at, right? But they're not very clearly made.
No.
And I guess, if Mo and I, we have some experience with open source stuff. If you're new to this, there's just some unexpected stuff that you don't really encounter. But we're just trying to speak from the reality of our experience. I don't know, whatever. What did everyone else think about this one?
I tend to agree with what you guys said. Also, just following the text along, the bolding definitely makes a difference, and kind of drives the attention. Where this is probably also my half dyslexic brain, drives the attention to the main bits that are of focus. So yeah, in conjunction with the other paragraph, bolding definitely would help. But yeah, I agree with what you guys said.
Mo, Mo, don't you have to hop out now?
I was literally just sending a message to everyone, and in my message, I was just going to say thank you, everyone, for joining. Every contribution, every message you say, every comment, everything helps shape this content. So don't feel like you're not making a difference, because you are. So keep up the good work. And yes, I'm about to go. Bye-bye.
Okay, good luck.
Bye.
Bye. Good luck.
Bye.
Yeah. Okay, so this paragraph seems to need some work. Success stories. Anyone want to read that one?
Yeah, I can.
No takers?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, okay. It's not very loud.
Oh, okay. So I can take the next, if that's okay.
Okay, perfect. Can you speak up a little bit or adjust your volume? Is that possible? I don't know how about the others, but I cannot hear you very loud.
It's very faint. Yeah, the sound.
Okay, I'll just shout on my microphone. So,
Don't lose your voice.
just, yeah. Let me know if you can hear. So, success stories. Despite the challenges, many designers have made significant impacts in the open source world. Their stories can serve as inspiration and show the real difference design can make in these projects. Take Elementary OS, for example. This Linux distribution stands out for its focus on design, creating a cohesive and intuitive user experience. The Elementary team has shown that open source software can be just as polished and user friendly as proprietary alternatives. Their work has not only made Linux more accessible to non-technical users, but has also raised the bar for design in the open source community as a whole. Mozilla Firefox is another great example of the power of design in open source. The Firefox browser has undergone several major redesigns over the years, each improving its usability and visual appeal. These changes have helped Firefox remain competitive in the browser market, providing a user centric alternative to proprietary browsers. In the world of content management systems, WordPress has continually, continually improved its user interface, making website creation accessible to non technical users. The WordPress design team has played a crucial role dem- in, democrat- in democratizing web publishing, allowing millions of people to create and manage their own websites without needing to understand an underlying code. The Fedora project provides another inspiring example. Fedora, a popular Linux distribution, has a dedicated design team that has significantly improved the distribution's branding and user experience. Their work demonstrates how design can enhance not just the software itself, but also the overall project identity and community engagement. These success stories show that designers can have a profound impact on open source projects, whether it's making complex technology more accessible, improving project branding, or enhancing user experiences. designers play a crucial role in the open source ecosystem.
Thank you. What do you make of this?
Along,
I'm sorry.
I was audible all along, right?
Yeah. I could. At least I could hear you well.
Okay.
What do you make of those examples?
Uh, I think that they are the success stories itself. I don't know what to like what to give the feedback, but yeah, like I'm not so sure about that.
You're not convinced, huh?
Like yeah, I'm reading it and like yeah, not convinced that
Yeah.
I should work open source.
Yeah. It's it's the same thing again. We had this in a previous page too. Okay. Thanks, Joseph. See ya. We had this in a previous page also, and let me try to pull up this. I think we had it last week, and I went ahead and I revised. There were some examples here further down, but here in design it was also very generic, right? But then, I dug up some links as kind of recommendations, and I put them in here. It's like, Penpot is an open source, Figma alternative. Then you have the
Yeah,
intertypeface, like that is design right here. Or you have these open peeps illustrations, which is an open source illustration set, right, created by one person. Or you have health icons, which is open source 3,000 health related icons for health applications, right? That's all design stuff, right? Those are all um, it's not just like these big
yeah.
tech behemoths like oh, it's some Linux thing or Firefox, right? They're like huge companies, right? You can contribute in a small way. You can just make an illustration set and people use it and you have a good time and other people chip in, right? I don't know that I would change it to more individual stories, and I would change it to show a much more diverse types of contributions, and maybe even tell some personal stories if we can tell, like, oh, this designer from, I don't know, Taiwan ended up, did this and that, and
Oh yeah,
yeah,
that would be actually more convincing.
yeah,
And even if we want to like show the big companies, we can just give the links to like just like the bold things. We can just put a link and maybe they can go if they want to see their success stories. But
mhm,
uh, as a designer, I would like to see myself, like people like myself,
mhm,
growing rather than the companies growing. So yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I think the AI just knows stuff about some of these big things. It doesn't know about the real human experience. That is what we want to
It
see
can't.
here, right? Um,
It's an AI after all.
yeah, but it gives you a starting point, right? It gives us something to react to, and then we can say, like, no, this is not quite right. We want this something. Yeah, but I do think, as part of this project, at some point we need to have a separate initiative where we try to find designers who work in this space and then just ask them to do a little bit of a write up, answer some questions, maybe share some of their work, and then just put that here as these type of success stories and case studies and examples. I think that would really enrich this thing.
Yes.
Okay, how about best practices? We have about 12 minutes left. Anyone want to read it? Otherwise, I'll take it on.
I can continue.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, so best practices. As you embark on your journey in open source design, there are several best practices that can help you contribute effectively and make the most of your experience. First and foremost, take the time to understand the project thoroughly. Finalize finalize yourself with a goals, target, user base, and any technical constraint. This knowledge will help you create designs that truly serve the project's need and are feasible to implement. When you are just starting out, it's often best to begin with minor contributions. This approach allows you to understand the project's workflow and community dynamics without feeling overwhelmed. As you gain confidence and familiarity with the project, you can gradually take on larger design tasks. Clear communication is the key in open source projects, where when proposing designs, explain your decisions clearly. What problems are you trying to solve? Why did you choose this particular solution? Being transparent about your thoughts process helps others understand and provide constructive feedback on your work. Patience is another crucial virtue in the open source world. Change can often be slow in these projects, especially larger or more established ones. Don't get discouraged if your ideas aren't implemented immediately. Keep refining your proposals and building support within the community. While you don't need to become a programming expert, having a basic understanding of version control, particularly Git, can be incredibly helpful. This knowledge will allow you to contribute more effectively and collaborate more smoothly with developers. Remember that design is in open source is a collaborative effort. Work closely with developers to ensure your designs are technically feasible. Be open to feedback and willing to iterate on your designs based on community input. Hmm. Lastly, always document your work thoroughly. Clear documentation helps others understand and build upon your contributions, ensuring that your designs can evolve and improve even after you have moved on to another project. By following these best practices, you will be well equipped to make meaningful contributions to open source projects and grow as a designer in this unique and rewarding field. So I actually maybe like this part. I think I saw my past somewhere. So because I contributed after a very long time. I was just in the design calls for the knowledge, like what what you actually do. And after a while, I contributed, and yeah, so I think this I like this part, but yeah, it can be shortened a lot. Yeah, I think the points are good. What do you think?
Any thoughts from anyone? So, oh, go for it. Was someone about to say something?
Maybe merging, for example, the version control paragraph with the collaborative effort. Those could be merged quite um, elegantly, let's say. Um, and I was thinking the clear communication and creating documentation could probably be merged as well, but it makes more sense as they are, because it kind of has a succession for the paragraphs and the steps you kind of uh, would go through. So it kind of makes more sense to have the documentation at the end. Yeah, so that bit makes sense as it is.
Oh, we're like 7 minutes to the end of the call. If people need to go, something that I did with success stories and also for best practices, I asked Claude to like, take this document and give me some examples that make this whole thing more practical. And I quite like, I mean, I don't think we should copy paste it, but I like the example of what it came up with. And I feel like this would be this helps. Like, for example, first and foremost, take the time to understand the project thoroughly. It came up with the example of a designer joining an open source note-taking app spends a week using the app daily, reading through user feedback on GitHub issues, and studying the project roadmap before proposing any design changes. You know, that's kind of, or let's see, another one was, instead of proposing a complete redesign, the Start Small part, a new contributor starts by improving the layout of the playlist view, making it easier to read and interact with. Starting with minor contributions. So I feel like this type of stuff is just makes it just so much easier to relate to. And especially if we can come up with actual link out to actual examples, like because a lot of work happens in public, you can just link to all this stuff. How does everyone feel about kind of rephrasing and this whole thing and trying to give more of these user stories, I guess?
Yeah. Plus one.
Sorry, we can't hear you if you just said something.
Yeah, I just said plus one. Like, I agree.
Okay.
One thing I would say, the examples are really good to kind of add in there. Only one concern I would have is how text heavy would become if they become embedded. Maybe so I would think of two ways we could probably go about it. Either making it a bit more concise, or having it having the examples shown in a contextual way. So like a hover, and then hover over a keyword, and then you get the example to read, or something like that.
Or like in a little box, or just some separators where it's not just wall of text, right?
Yeah.
That makes total sense, yeah. You know, one more comment I had on this one, and the patience stuff reminded me of that. And that's something that Mo said earlier. It's like some of these practices, you really want to know, like, where does that even come from? And the patience it's just a matter of fact that you have a lot of volunteers doing these things. They have other lives. They do this on the side. Some of them are full-time people. You get this mix. They're spread all over the world, right? So people just need a little bit of time to respond to those things. You just have a different rhythm, right? Or then like Christmas happens or a summer break or so, and things slow down, but then sometimes they pick up again, right? You just have a different rhythm in project, and you have to work with that, and you have to think about, okay, my contributors, they're like in 3 different time zones. Like I need to think ahead a little bit and plan a little bit differently. And that's where the patience comes from, right? It's not like people are just, slow and unresponsive, right? It's just different dynamics. So I feel like some of these best practices are better explained if you just kind of, I mean, they make more sense, right? If you understand where they come from. I don't know if that can all be baked in, but I feel like that might be helpful. Yeah, exactly. Okay, we have like 3 minutes left, and then we have a conclusion. Maybe we don't need to read the conclusion. I don't know if you read it. I just didn't find, it was more like a little bit of a summary, and then it was just trying to be motivational. I don't know if it really was a conclusion or not. I guess the question was, is a conclusion necessary? Is it just meant to be as a summary of what you just read? Is that even helpful? I don't know. It felt pretty wishy-washy. Did anyone else read it? Do you have thoughts on it? All good. Yeah. So I think one of the issues here is too that the AI kind of created this whole content page by page, and So when it created one page, it wasn't really aware of the other pages. And that's where we end up with some of the repetition that's going on here. Yeah. Should we wrap it up? Do you have any final thoughts? Anyone want to help review, implement changes on this one? Anyone want to volunteer? So what's next?
I can try to help if I can, if I know how.
Okay.
If you can tell me how I could help.
Awesome. Are you in the Bitcoin Design Discord somewhere?
I am. I think I just joined a little bit earlier.
Awesome. So we have the education channel, and in there we can basically only conversations about this project's happening. And then, yeah, sorry. I mean, a simple, very helpful thing is if you look at the notes document that you have access to also that I shared,